And I'm gonna be high.
Good on you, Donald. I'm the Rocket Man, yeah.
I'm a rocket man. And I'm gonna be
Rocket Man.
I'm a rocket man. I wanna go to the moon.
Take me through what, before there was Highway, how did people do what you just said? Like
That's
they
a good
just went to
question.
RMIS or Care 411 or?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll just tell you what I did. Like, so my reps I ran several brokerages, and they're covering freight. And hey, you want to get set up? Yeah, send me your packet, right? And so back in the day, it was like I had a packet on my desk. I would fax it to the carrier, and all RMIS did was they took that packet and they said, we'll just put that on the internet. And the closest thing to a to like a it's the closest thing to like having a bunch of individual apps on your iron as possible is RMIS. So it's a web app, but like the rules engine wasn't global. So we all had different rules. We all had different things. So Highway's rules engine sits at the top, right?
Right.
You pick what rules you want to enable. So rather than like me saying, okay, I'm going to invite, Gabe's trucking company, and I'm going to send him a packet, I'm going to do all this.
Right. Gabe's
Trucking is already logged into Highway, and it functions just like the technology you use all day long. There's a JSON token sitting there. If you're an authentic user, I invite you to connect with me. And so now the motor carrier just signs into Highway, and I already know everything. I don't have to do the onboarding all over again, right? And so we don't think about it like vendor clearance. We think about it like connecting. We think about it like you connecting your Calendly app to your Gmail.
Or
and
connecting Gmail to Claude these days, the connectors.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, same thing. And so, but every time a carrier does that, it's the same thing that happens when you use Gmail or Facebook or any kind of, all auth 2 flow.
Multi-factor authentication.
You're re-authenticating that user. That's a data point. And
when you book them, not just one time. Now this carrier's green in the system until we hear otherwise.
Yeah. And so what happens is like that motor carrier, it's fast, right? It's a 30-second onboard if they're a good actor, because they're just going right to the broker carrier agreement. They're answering any custom questions and it's done. They don't have to redo onboarding. But when bad actors come in, we can do things like rate limit them. Like, hey, this is a 10-truck carrier. They usually onboard with 2 brokers a week. Why did they suddenly just try to connect with 20 brokers? That's really weird. Right. So you're using just cybersecurity principles to look at patterns and introduce friction when there's a potential problem.
Okay. Well, we got Michael Caney, the CCO. Is that what you go by, CCO? Chief Commercial Officer at Highway. Michael, where are you calling in from?
Chattanooga, Tennessee. Freight
Some
Alley, some people would call it.
Some would call it the freight capital of the world. Some call it Freight Alley. I think there's probably bias towards people who live there, but I do think there's something to it. Anytime I talk to a freight professional from Chattanooga, they seem to know what they're doing.
Yeah. It's like working in tech in Silicon Valley. Like, there's been so many exits that like they just keep spinning off talent.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. Like, not a lot going on in Chattanooga other than like insurance, Coca-Cola, and freight.
Exactly. So you're repping Highway, and we just did a bunch of chat before this so I could understand it better. I like to bring on guests that I don't know a lot about you, and I don't know a lot about the industry. I know a lot about fraud and a lot about truckload and stuff, but this new tech that Highway has, and last week I had someone on from GenLogs, and like it's really interesting how you guys are solving the problem. And then I think about it, and I'm like, man, I just asked you this question. I was like, well, what did people do before that? And it's pretty shocking. And then we also talked about how you guys have fixed it, and then it evolves because fraud evolves as fast as you can fix it.
Yeah.
So give me a high level first question. I'm a broker. I want to book a freight carrier off a load board. I sign up with Highway. How does it work? How do I know that you verified that this is a good carrier for me? Yeah. Similar to how I used to go to RMIS or do my carrier packets.
Yeah. I mean, my first thing would be, please don't book carriers off load boards. That would honestly be my first. Actually, please don't do that anymore. If you're so the reality is, for your audience that isn't a freight broker, this can be fun to talk about. But we do business with like 98 of the top 100. So Highway's actually fencing, most brokered freight in the country already. We went from from basically 0 to 1,200 customers in 4 years. I mean, that the problem was that bad, and a lot of it is because we're very good at what we do, but a lot of it is there was not a better option, Gabe. There was just, you're sending out packets, right? And none of it's connected. They weren't, and the incumbent, and now they especially with Scott Moskert being back, like Truck Stop and RMIS are doing a much better job of tackling the fraud problem. But their initial response is not our problem. We do onboarding. But like literally that was their initial response. Like, we're not in the fraud business. Like we do onboarding. You need to go figure out fraud, broker. And we just said like, we would call ourselves as much a service business as a software business. We just believe in owning outcomes, not just shipping features.
Right.
And, when we looked at it, we were just like, this is an outcome we can own. And so, what a broker does, they look at a carrier and highway, and they don't just see if it's passing, Gabe, because some carriers can partial pass.
Okay.
Like a carrier may, so you do a lot in the LTL world where like classify carriers, right? Like we classify truckload carriers as in like, hey, you absolutely should use them, to move bottled water or scrap paper, maybe not electronics, right? Like a broker is gonna put risk in a matrix. And so a carrier can have a valid identity and still be problematic.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so it's not, we were the first ones to just say, hey, we're going to put risk in a matrix, and we're going to put limits around how carriers can behave in a freight broker's network. And one of the ways we're going to do that is we're going to take a network wide, like macro approach and allow a broker to make decisions based on a carrier's overall behavior, not just their own little individual rules world.
I like that. And I think that solves a problem that I see often with these types of tools, not necessarily highway because it's a newer one and built with really good software and service.
Yep.
But it was like, oh, there are good carriers out there who would get blacklisted or, get a freight guard or whatnot for an erroneous reason. And then they can't be used. Yeah. Or the factoring companies would, say, hey, we're not going to factor loads for these. And I'm kind of segueing into how this got started with highway. But I think that if you guys are able to put them in a risk matrix, per se, as you called it, then you could say, hey, the broker can kind of decide, do I want to move them for this load? It's not like yes, no, black, white. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah. And then the other thing is understanding that a carrier that, onboards or connects with a broker on a Monday might look different on a Tuesday.
Especially in this exact environment.
And so if you think about, so how did they do it before, right? It was a handshake. It was what amounted to a handshake, and fraud wasn't really bad. I mean, I did this for 20 years before it got bad. I mean, you'd have a load stolen and double brokering existed, but the reality is the worst thing about double brokering was an unpaid cargo claim if there was an accident. And really it's just that as a freight broker and your load got double brokered, you were pissed because it meant somebody was better at buying capacity than you because they were getting legit.
Yeah, there's a margin stack
like
now.
You got beat. Like, man, my margin, like that was actually the worst part is you got beat. And now it's truly dangerous. They're stealing freight, they're misdirecting shipments. But the thing to understand is that there's no in what we do, there's no panacea, there's no magic bullet.
Yeah.
We just did a roadshow with our biggest customers and said, like, the vendor that walks in here and says, we did it, you need to throw them out. Because, like, we do this all day long and we're telling you there's no magic bullet. Because there's not been a magic bullet in bank fraud, wire fraud, medical fraud. Like, when fraud shows up, Gabe, it's there.
And then you fixed it, and then they figure out how you fixed it, and then they come up with a new scheme.
Yeah, I mean, organizations now have a C-suite position called the Chief Information Security Officer for a reason. And it's not because some vendor said, we fixed information security, it's done.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest thing that our industry's having to adapt to is like, it's a newer problem for them, for us. Yeah. But every maturing market has gone through this, brother. Like every maturing market has had standards that like, Look at banking. Look at the savings and loan scandals of the 80s. Look at the 2008 financial crisis. Every time
look at the PPP funds in COVID.
Oh God, yeah, but that's the point. Is like every time there's something that can be exploited, trust breaks down, and what happens is you need standards. You need new standards. And so really, what's missing is not like software or better checks. We have all the signal we've ever wanted. What's actually missing is an enforceable standard.
Right. All right. I'm going to pivot back to how highway started, and we won't do the whole like, hey, how did you start it and why did you do it? But we will do, it started as a core question of who's hauling your freight.
Who's really hauling your freight?
and Jordan Graft, who was the CEO at Triumph, and then founded
he ran a business unit there.
Triumph Pay.
Full
Good
disclosure,
point.
his brother
Very
is CEO
large
of the
company.
bank. Yeah.
They do everything. Triumph Pay, and then
Yep.
he's, the way that I understand it, at least, and you correct me if I'm wrong, and if I'm really wrong, just cut it out. But he was having these brokers come to him saying, I don't know if you should pay this bill. That's a freight factor, but I don't know if you should pay it because I'm not sure who actually hauled it.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, that can't be true. Like, how we have a POD, we have the paperwork. Of course they hauled it. And unbeknownst to him, the industry had this underbelly of double brokering and different carriers and all that stuff. Would you say that that's still the main problem, is like chameleon carriers or double brokering, or is it something else now in fraud?
I'll give you the three most effective vectors. And so there's a lot of fraud vectors, like in every business. And I'm sure in the world that you participate in, in the last mile and LTL world, there's a different way that maybe fraud, bad actors exploit things in terms of
not nearly like truckload though.
Yeah, not nearly. But the point is, like, anytime that there's something that can be exploited, you exploit it, right?
Oh yeah.
Maybe pilferage in your world. So let me give you the three most effective things in truckload. There's a lot of things, but one is direct theft. And so in highways is direct theft, and there's a lot of talking heads that like to say a lot of different things. What we mean is there's a carrier that's been in your network, a broker's network, for months, years, whatever, and they just break bad, Gabe. They just say, hey, we're going to break bad. And the thing that's driving the growth of direct theft is really Secretary Duffy, regardless of your or mine or anybody in the audience's political opinion. Secretary Duffy made some statements about non-domiciled and limited term CDLs.
Yeah.
And the administration, signaled that they were going to take action. And so what they said is, like, we're just going to get all we can and go home. In a nutshell.
Wow. I hadn't heard it said that way. I was just talking with Shannon Breen at Freight Vana a couple of weeks ago about freight fraud and the markets and non-domiciled CDLs in a different aspect of like what that's going to do to supply.
Yeah.
But that just makes sense. That's easy to understand for anybody. Hey, if you've been doing this for a long time and you think it's going to end, you're probably going to say, hey, one last hurrah, eh?
Yep. And we know this because this is internationally orchestrated crime. They're controlled by overseas dispatch services.
Yeah.
Very early in highway, first year of highway, the first time we ever talked to a task force leader at the FBI, I can remember them saying, well, wait a minute. They're getting me to explain the problem to them. And they were like, well, wait a minute. I don't know if this is us, if this is Homeland. Because when we were saying, like, you have people operating here that are being controlled and dispatched from Indiana, Pakistan, Serbia,
Uzbekistan,
Uzbekistan, yeah. And so it's just a layered thing. So anyway, direct theft, that's a big one. But we can see the data and we can give you the signal and you can make a different decision. I mean, there's a data-driven line and a disproportionate amount of risk associated with that carrier cohort. The second one is the like the sold MC that you hear people talking about, or just the change of hands, right? The change in credentialing somehow. This is a really hard one to spot because it's not just about like going on a Telegram site and pretending to be somebody else so you can watch and see who's going to list their MC number for sale. Like, they figure out you're doing that because you go post about it on LinkedIn. They're just going to reroute and do it somewhere else. That is a signal.
Right.
That is one data point that's a signal. And so when you're watching for the sold MC or the changed, change of control, you've got to use an algorithm with a whole lot of points to say, hey, this behavior is suggestive of an entity that has had a change of control event that's not legitimate. That's the second. It's very, very effective. Yeah. One of the reasons it's effective in truckload is because they know that us and everybody else now watches for the physical footprint. So when we first got into this, Gabe, if you had telematics or if you knew where trucks were, bad actors weren't hip to what we were doing. So they would get control of the motor carrier. They would get into a brokerage network on a load board, and that carrier maybe ran the Eastern Seaboard, and they'd go steal a bunch of freight in California. So now they're very good at also stealing freight where the real motor carrier has been present.
And what you're saying there, for my benefit, just to make sure I understood it, is that if they're domiciled out of the Northeast and they're stealing freight in California, then it would be more back in the day, you didn't have the telematics, and so it was like, hey, if you do that now, it's like, hey, this carrier is out of New Jersey. They shouldn't be there anyways.
Yeah,
That's a
so it's
red
painfully
flag.
obvious now. But
Yeah.
so what I'm saying now, they're impersonation efforts because they know what Gemlogs does. They know what we do. But there was a theft the other day that like they stole freight in Indiana where the carrier that they were impersonating ran freight. So if you go and look at the
All the
physical
signs
history
made
of the
sense.
carrier,
The MT was clean. The carrier should be there. The carrier runs there all the time. He's on the cameras. He's got the telematics. They just are smarter now.
smarter. And then the third most effective is the poor digital hygiene of the motor carrier's inbox. So freight brokers and truckload, a little different than final mile and LTL. Freight brokers are doing business with about 170,000 different motor carriers and about 1.4 million vehicles. So the fragmentation is incredible. And the dirtiest digital hygiene in the business is the motor carrier's inbox. And so the bad actor knows that we've shut them down, but if they can get in that inbox, they can watch. Now we saw a theft a couple of weeks ago where they actually, the carrier allowed us to do a full digital scrub of their systems because we didn't believe them. They said, we got hacked. That's everybody's line. I got hacked. And so they said, no, you take over our systems. And so our team actually did some forensics and did some work on their systems. And the bad actor had actually installed malware and gotten complete device control of 3 devices. And it set up rules to send incoming emails automatically to spam folders so that the carrier didn't even know they were getting emails. And the whole time the bad actor is lying in wait in the inbox looking for the freight to steal.
What are they doing with that? What are they looking for? Rate confirmations or just
They're looking for rate confirmations.
rate cons, and then they're like, then they go and impersonate that carrier with the broker?
With the shipper. They just show up and pick it up.
Because they got the rate con. Mm-hmm. They've got the paperwork. They say this is who we are.
The real carrier doesn't know that they have a load.
So then when the carrier shows up to pick up, they impersonate that carrier. How are they impersonating them? MC number on the side of the vehicle or DOT, or what do they do?
Because the shipper doesn't care. They don't check. And so they just show up and go, hey, I've got this rate. I'm here to pick up such and such, and this is the broker, and this is the pickup number, and I'm going here, and they know everything about the load. So the way that we cut that off is we have a product that actually secures the rate confirmation, where even if a bad actor is sitting in the inbox, when they go to access the rate confirmation digitally, it's like my accountant sent me my tax return today, and it's definitely not attached as a PDF.
It's like when you buy a house and you get in a mortgage document and you're like, okay, go to the secure portal, and then it's almost impossible to get in.
Well, it's exactly, but like when I click to see my tax return today, the token's already I've already logged in, so it pulled right up. But if it wasn't me, it's gonna put me through MFA. It's gonna do something. And so like legitimate carriers can get rate confirmations from us really easy.
Yeah.
And if it's a bad actor's in the inbox, then we see that it's not that person trying to authenticate. So, we have to do all kinds of stuff. We have to IDV these folks. We've had to institute all the security that you interact with as a consumer. We've had to build to protect.
Yeah, I think that's a good thread to pull on. Is like people are so used to logging into Gmail. If I log into Gmail, I buy a new laptop and I log into Gmail. It's like, we don't recognize this device. Now we need you to type in a number from your phone and it needs to match. And people are so used to that, maybe annoyed by it, but consumers are used to it now. That doesn't happen had not happened at all in truckload and freight.
No, I mean,
it was like, harder. Hey, we filled out a piece of paper and we did I think what I'm trying to get to is like, it's not even, they didn't have to be that smart in the past. They just had to do a couple of good loads, get some good standing, get paid by a few freight factors, and then bide their time and then be like, all right, now we can be bad actors because we're accepted in everybody's systems. It's not like day one, they're like, hey, I'm going to steal the first load I get.
That's right.
And because it's organized, it's not just some random guy driving a truck. It's organized overseas as well.
Yeah. And if you keep pulling on that thread, right? I just had to do this. Fraud's a business, and they now have more invested working capital to run that business because it's harder. And so when they can't miss, and they have to hit a lot of freight. And so here's what I'll tell you: like they're in the network, they're running, they're picking up and delivering freight, and like we're hunting them all day long. We're looking at patterns all day long going, because we now track things at the load level. It used to just be the onboarding. And so now like we actually look at the broker's load, look at the assigned carrier, track the truck, look at the digital signature of who's accessing. Like we're now looking at every single transaction to validate it.
Are you doing that with integrations with the TMS providers, or how do you guys? Are you in what? Are there any TMSs you're not integrated with right now, or like are you with the major?
No, we're integrated with any important commercial TMS. What I would tell you, some of them struggle to support all of our features, and
Right.
so brokers got exposure because their TMS doesn't have the technical ability to play ball. But all the big ones, McLeod and Revenova, and they're all great. They all work with us. And then the largest brokers have their own system, so they just wire it up themselves.
Yeah, and you guys have the API or webhooks and just wire it in.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we built our stack in this century, so
yeah. So you have everything people would need.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me keep talking about tech then. So you guys started it 4 years ago. What was your go-to-market strategy? How did you first go and create the shell of all the profiles and say, hey, now we have the product and then let's integrate it into TMSs?
Mm-hmm. It's a really interesting founder story. One of the things that helps us go really fast is we have a very technical founder.
But especially in today's world, that's a huge advantage.
Yeah. And so we didn't have to raise a ton of capital. We didn't have to go spend a bunch of money on developers. And you had a guy that had worked in a business that dealt with all of these integrations. And so you know this, like you're not a freight guy. Like you've done a lot of things, right? And so but you've been in this vertical long enough to know that it gets very small very quickly.
Oh yeah.
And so Jordan had already written integrations with McLeod. Like he'd done it on the payments side. And so we had a lot of relational capital, between Jordan being from that side of the business and I've been hanging out in this vertical for 20 something years. I knew a few people. And so our go-to-market strategy initially was like building the secure sign-on for the industry, building the SSO. Nobody understood that. And so I just called my friends and said, how about your freight doesn't get stolen? They're like, that's great. And so the initial go-to-market was just like, you have a problem I can solve. Like, let's just own the outcome and solve this problem. And it's evolved from there, And
now that you have a track record, you're probably on. I would imagine your growth curve has been probably pretty good the last few years. Now that you have a track record, because I mean, anecdotally, and I do play in the truckload space, we do 4PL work in there, so our customers will use our TMS and bring in all of their brokers, and I see all of them, and I see all the loads, and I hear highway with the USPS, and I hear highway with this major TMS. So I hear it everywhere. I was curious how you guys decided to go to market and penetrated that quickly, because there's a lot of SaaS startups don't do that or never get that type of market penetration. I'm not comparing you guys to Claude, but it's a similar thing. Like Claude right now, I feel like their entire marketing strategy is like, hey, AI might take over the world and it's too powerful and it's too dangerous. We have this new mythos. You need us. And you guys used a much more cogent and relevant, hey, we can fix freight fraud. Mm-hmm. And like, I think the reason I say it that way is I think you guys do more than just the shell right now.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
What else are you guys doing?
Well, go back to your original question. Yeah, Jordan bought a little business called carrierlists.com. And so we initially had this whole shell of carriers and we said, okay, when he sat and did this before I took it to market, before I took the integrated product to market, he's like, how do I look at this carrier file and keep it trued up, keep it up to date? And then how do I persist that into a freight broker's network? And so there was a lot of thought around just architecture. And I would say that the main difference is like, we're from this business. So one of the things that I had to deal with as a freight broker was young, well-intended founders that would come out of Silicon Valley and sit in my conference room and tell me how stupid I was and freight's fragmented and you guys are just doing everything wrong. If you just do this, it'd be great. And I'm just saying none of those founders have had a great exit.
It's not on the horizon either.
Yeah, man. And so rather than showing up to freight brokers and saying, man, we're smarter than you, we just showed up and said, hey, we understand your workflow and we're going to meet you exactly where you are and solve the problem.
Right.
The second thing we did was he said, hey, we won't sell to shippers.
Okay.
And so one of the things that freight brokers have gone through is people will use them to get access, right? Because freight brokers have the money. Then they go raise capital. The investor shows up and says, you either have to go down market, right? And have like a freemium, whatever, or you have to go up market. And that means go to the shipper and sell the shipper.
Okay. I don't want to get controversial, but how many AI load building carrier sales companies are going to have to do exactly that? I mean, that you just laid out the exact scenario of like
unit economics don't work. And that's what brokers know is like, you're
only
going
so many brokers
and then you're going to betray me.
Yes, because
What
there's
we
only
said
so
is
many
we won't do
brokers,
it.
and they're going to build the automations and learn the workflow, and then they're going to be able to sell that to Menards or Home Depot, and they don't need to use TMSs. Then they'll have the AI.
Yeah.
That's
But
and it's
I
because
think
the
what
TAM is larger, and maybe they're
yeah.
well intentioned. It's not the founder's fault. I'm not saying anybody that I know in the industry is like, but the VCs are going to say, "Hey, look at the TAM over here compared to the TAM here."
Yeah, it comes down to an
Not
incentive
even-
alignment issue.
yeah,
And the incentive alignment, when you raise, I would just say this word, a stupid amount of capital, and you don't control your business anymore. So like today, Jordan,
Yeah.
we there's a PR out there. We have a minority investment from FTV and LeadEdge, but it's a non-controlling investment. Jordan still controls the business.
that's
So
rare.
just like but we grew fast enough where we got to control our own destiny. And I think it's important for brokers in the audience to even understand that is like this is not a pump and dump, go chase a bunch of ARR and then betray the customer base. It's just not. We just won't do it. Because there's plenty of money to be earned and value to be created in creating a platform that's more like Visa, where you create the standards, the operating standards that freight, which is now a digital transaction, is able to trade on. And that's actually what's been missing. That was always the founding vision, but you first have to kind of like stop the bleeding, Gabe. Just like,
Yeah.
right? Before you can start
And you got to get some
automating.
short-term value added and say, "Hey, we did this, and here's tangible value," and you got to build that. You're a startup, so not
Yeah.
anymore, but you were.
Man, it's weird. Like we kind of still are. Like most people aren't where we are in 4 years, so it's weird to think that we're.
I think that startup is not defined by revenue, so I would say you're still startup, especially if you're running lean. Then definitely, and I would
what
say
we also try to do is keep true our ethos of like owning outcomes, being responsive. And so as we come out with new products, like we break the business up into business units so that they get focus, so the customers are always getting a response, so that a solution isn't lost in another product leader's stack. Like the only thing that product leader is worried about is his solution stack and how it. And so we try to keep breaking the business up to keep it focused, so that the customer doesn't lose that feeling of like responsiveness from us.
exactly that's how every startup fails, is if they grow too fast. And well, maybe not every startup, but if you just said you're not going to do a pump and dump,
Yeah.
the startups who do that don't care if that eventually happens because they don't plan on being there.
No,
They
because
hope
the
that
founder, the whole
biggest companies
strategy,
buy them and they can figure that part out.
it's a financial engineering scheme where the founder and the founding team have their own unique share class, and they're worried about what chips they can take off the table. And look, no fault. You're a founder. Like Jordan's a founder. Good founders should get paid for what they create, for creating value.
Absolutely.
But we also it's a moral thing to us. We think that value should be tied to customer outcomes. And so we have a
Breath
bit
of
of
fresh
a
air to the
moral
industry,
compass.
Michael. Breath of fresh air. Wow. I didn't know that part about highway. I think I incorrectly lumped highway into that same category as all the other, not all of the other, but a bunch of the other companies that you just described.
Yeah.
Because
our earliest investment was from freight brokers.
That's pretty rare too.
Like freight brokers are like, yes, I'll give you money to go solve this problem, Jordan.
There it is.
So we can't betray them. Like, I mean, there's CEOs of companies that invested in this thing because they believed in it. And so it's just like some people don't believe it when I say it, but it's just a moral thing. It's where I come from. I can't go betray my friend. I can't go to like the TIA conference this week and betray my friends, Gabe.
Right. And you have to be able to live with yourself if you're going to do that. And doesn't feel like you don't give off those vibes, Michael.
Thanks.
But at the end of the day, even if it wasn't vibes, it's really just, we talked about it a little bit, but last season on this podcast, I talked a lot about VC money and like the reverse incentives and how that doesn't always work well with freight brokerages. I didn't talk about maybe the Silicon Valley AI companies because they were still just kind of coming out. Now there's a lot of them, but it's really just incentives. Even if everybody involved has great intention, if the incentive isn't there, it doesn't matter. And so at the end of the day, it's capitalism.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing too, is like when you really look at the ethos of a company, like, man, we have great investors. Like I love our board. Like they're so supportive and they're like, man, how can you go faster? And they believe what we believe. And they've made other investments in the identity space and in the fintech space. So they get it, right? They understand like the durability of a business that comes out of like building solid core infrastructure. And so I think sometimes when you're looking at a company, you've got to look at the underlying investor and like their exit track record.
Right.
And so the CEO can say anything in the world that they want, but if you go look at the underlying investor and their track record and how those companies exit and where they go, it will tell you the truth about where that founder is going to take the company. Because the CEO is going to say whatever they have to say to be commercially viable because they don't control the business anymore. That's the reality.
They have to. Yeah.
And so I don't know maybe I'm getting off topic. I'm pretty passionate about it just because I feel like I've suffered from the poor outcomes of that, in tech that I really wanted to believe in that just really crapped the bed,
I've seen it too many times. And I also, because I'm a founder, I'm like, hey, I did it a different way. So I'm always like, I'm biased towards doing it bootstrapped or maybe bootstrapped and then take investment and a minority stake, but still controlling the company. So I'm always like checking my own bias, like, okay, just because I'm doing it this way doesn't mean, but it's just so blatant. Some of the investment incentives and how the shares work and how ARR has to work. And there's never a path to profitability until an exit. And I build tech and do managed transfer shippers. So I'm like, I just can't think of how that, I'm kind of this similar to what you were saying is like, hey, I want to make a bunch of money, but it's going to be tied to bringing customers value. And that's about it. Whether we're building tech or consulting, it's like, if I bring my customers
our whole
more
executive
value,
team, we ran like what I like to call for-profit businesses.
Yeah.
So this idea of just like, don't ever make money is not in our DNA. It was like, get to the black. I mean, the whole thing was like, my first one-on-one with our CEO was like, okay, how fast can we get in the black? And I was like, hold my beer, brother. I got it. Like, it wasn't like, how can we get to the funding round? It was like, how fast can we get in the black? And I was like, let's go build that model. Right. Because
you didn't build it off of a rule of 40, basically.
Yeah. And you just like, how fast can you be cash flow positive?
All right. Let me dig into some of the stuff with Highway here. So this is just me speculating. I don't really know anything about what you guys are bringing out for new products, but if you have the carrier shells and you have the two-factor identity basically for the carriers, then you guys have that data, correct? Like, and wouldn't a broker eventually want to be like, I need to find a contract carrier for this customer that's going to run X and A to B and Z to X, and couldn't I just go to Highway and be like, which carriers are already running here that you trust that I can contact instead of, and I may be talking out of pocket here because I don't do it all that often, but I used to a lot back in the day. You would post a load, you'd cover it on the spot, you'd figure out which carrier you like, you'd go then to them, be like, how often do you run this? And then the advantage was CH Robinson and TQL could do that at scale and Arrive could do that at scale, but you couldn't. So it's like, you live on the load board. But does Highway already have that product? Is that coming?
Nope. That's exactly, it's almost like you founded a business before. So Highway's organized into 3 business units. Okay. One is identity, which is what we've been talking about. How do you maintain an identity infrastructure that lets the rest of our business and our broker's business run? The second business unit is load level compliance. So that's where we take all of the identity and we contextualize it at the load level. And the data that's used to do that is a mix of both physical footprint and digital footprint signal, and then also financial capabilities. So like we're reading a carrier's cargo policy through an LLM, looking for potential exclusions. We've mapped the commodity to the facility, not relying on the payload data that's in the load. Like we've independently gone out and said, this
does this warehouse actually alcohol. Okay.
And so we're looking and saying, okay, we know what the value is independently of the broker's payload, the load data, and we know the commodity independently, and we know this carrier only has this cargo limit and has this potential exclusion on page 82. Does an alert need to be? And so we're doing that. So yes, the third business unit is our capacity business. And so there's really 2 primary functions. One, we have something called the Trusted Freight Exchange. So it's not a public load board. And so when a motor carrier, it's free for a motor carrier. They authenticate through that sign-in that I've been telling you about. They've connected their telematics device. We've read their cargo policy. They've agreed to Highway's terms of use.
They dressed up for a prom date.
They did.
They're like, hey, here I am.
Yep. And we only show them the loads they're qualified for. So flatbed carrier is not going to see refrigerated freight and vice versa. And they're not going to see freight that falls outside their cargo limits. And so what that means is not only is that freight protected, but the carrier gets a really curated experience. So we use a machine learning model, and it learns their preferences and what they do for other brokers, and it suggests loads to that carrier. It's really great. It's really awesome. And then,
Is that suggesting loads from in your guys' network or like from other load
so
boards?
brokers sign up like they would a load board, only it's private, right? So they send the loads into the freight exchange, and
That's interesting.
They can make them available. But the beauty is, like, let's say a rocket shipping broker did that. Mm-hmm. My guess is like you have some kind of authentication. So if a carrier wanted to book that load and say, yeah, when they hit that sign in with highway, what we would actually build is a way for them to authenticate and go right into rocket shipping. So the whole idea
being like, all right, now I'll email you.
Yeah. So the whole idea is that, like, if you have a great digital experience that you've created for your customer, we want the carrier, we actually just want to sign them into you.
It's pretty cool.
We just want to sign them right into like that broker's native digital experience. We don't want our app to be the point. We want it to be the gateway. Now, some brokers that don't have that capability, they use TFX as like their whole digital booking suite. And then, yes, to your other question, like, yeah, that's all via API. So we have brokers that hit that endpoint programmatically and are consuming tons and tons of lane information to go out and target the best carriers. And that result, like we talked about earlier, I don't know if we were recording, but the result is not just capacity, but are they the right carrier for that load based on the cargo requirements?
Yeah, dude, and you have that information based off of other loads that they handle and what they normally have, their insurance and all of those variables.
Yeah, it's the carrier's equipment and insurance. The carrier's equipment and insurance will tell you, and then the broker's rule set. The broker may not want to load a carrier that's only been in business a year on electronics load, and so the result. So the old way is like you get the result based on just lane history, and then you have to go do all this diligence around should they even haul that load. And we just do all that for them.
I think, and maybe this is a stupid way to put it, but like that will also drive down freight fraud because when you say things like you used to have to then go do the diligence, guess what brokers don't end up doing? The diligence, because they are, whether it's because they're bad actors as brokers, because there's plenty of those, or they're just too busy and they don't have enough people and they just can't. They're like, the first person who called or the first person I called that said they'll accept the load, I got to move it. Or maybe it's actually upstream. The shipper is putting so much pressure on them, cover it for whatever it takes. And they get all that pressure and they're like, okay, I got to cover it by 4. It's a hot load, production load. And so then it creates that. But if
shippers are finally starting to change, but the number one incentive, we talked about incentive alignment. The number one incentive problem in freight is the shipper.
Yeah.
The shippers talk about service and they don't have an adequate way to consider risk as a part of service.
Yeah, it's just on time.
So we're gonna give them that. We're gonna be releasing a performance guarantee and standard saying, hey, if a load looks like this, it's guaranteed. Highway will stand behind it. And if it doesn't look like this, it's not guaranteed. And so for the first time ever, the industry will actually be able to consider risk as a part of a transaction.
And is that for the broker to digest, or will it be like an index? For
the broker digest, like we'll tell you, hey, yeah, this meets a performance guarantee standard.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the third thing. Maybe I shouldn't ask this, but are you guys going to, part of that ecosystem could be like the payment side, or is that like, hey, can't do that right now?
Let me tell you how I think about. I'll tell you how I think about payment providers, as well as insurance agents, and as well as telematics providers.
Okay.
We're not going to get in that space because I don't think that's what's needed. There's great payment companies. I don't need to go do that. There's great telematics providers. I don't need to go do that. I don't want to be in the insurance business. But what is missing from those things are standards. So insurance agencies
going
today,
back to the Visa.
Insurance agencies today, Gabe, get to feed me millions of lines of data every day. You know how much accountability they have for that data? There's 10,000 insurance agents in highway for 1.4 million vehicles, and for 80% of those vehicles are covered by 300. So I got 9,700 insurance agents that they're just no
throwing
consequence.
It spaghetti.
Yeah, but dude, but in some way they're credentializing that motor carrier, and the freight broker's making a hiring decision based on their data, and they don't have any contract with me. Well, we're going to change that, right? Same thing with the factoring company. Somebody said, hey, I'll finance this carrier. I don't care if they're good, bad, as long as I can buy the paper. So we don't need to get into that business. We just need to hold them accountable.
Which again, you'd be pretty broker friendly to do that, because that's insurance and payments, most brokers, when they first start, don't realize that that's actually all that matters to start, because no carrier or factoring company will work with you if you just started. And then working with carriers that want to be quick paid, and then maybe you use a factor and then the factor won't work with them. That's another part of this whole exchange. It ends up.
One of the things that happens in the long tail is a person that doesn't have a lot of morals will go get a couple of commercial insurance appointments, and then their buddy down the street will go set up a factoring company, and then their other buddy will go set up a white label ELD, and they're all in cahoots trying to credentialize bad carriers because, hey, has factor, has ELD, has insurance, must be great. We see it all the time. And no one holds them accountable.
It's actually not even that hard. You just off the cuff explained a pretty sophisticated fraud ring that could be set up by 3 dudes.
It happens all the time. We pull that thread.
And if there's money to be made, it'll always happen.
And if there's nobody, so one of the things that we've been saying is that, like, if you can't enforce a standard, it's a suggestion.
Well, enforcing a standard and there being a standard are actually 2 different things. So should there just be a different standard than, like, yeah, they check these 3 boxes and they're good?
So what well-meaning friends of mine, people that I care deeply about, would tell you is that they have standards and they publish them, and there's trade associations, multiple, that publish freight broker standards and hiring standards, and there are these PDFs. What the hell are you supposed to do with that? Then it just
Nothing.
And every quarter when they meet, the new one gets added. How do you keep up with that? And so in no other digital commerce do we do that. The standard is encoded in the trading of the transaction when the money moves. And so
you can't just go trade stocks, and you have to you have to use an exchange.
Yeah, and so that's what we're saying. We're saying, look, we're just going to go build standards around how this actually moves. And look, you can move it in a non-conforming way. You will have an understanding of the potential risk versus something that completely conforms to the standard. Like, loans get made in non-conforming ways often, but it's the risk is priced differently. It's that debt is sold differently, and it's more transparent.
Every time. Wow. All right, let me ask you another pivot question, but I think it'll be all encompassing.
Yeah.
You said LLM. How much, with Jordan being a technical founder, being a huge asset at the moment. Already was 4 years ago, but now it's like a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
How much AI can be put into Highway to be able to supercharge the fraud prevention or the carrier identity, or even, the next scheme? And how much is that a broker giving you more data to train it? Is it you guys creating your own AI? Like, what are you going to do with that?
Man, we're still trying to figure that out, brother. Like, honestly, the best thing about having a technical founder that loves really good SQL queries is that he's very skeptical of AI. And we've seen AI cause as many problems for our brokers as it has. Look, if you turn agentic AI loose on a really bad work stream, it's actually just going to make it worse. If you turn agentic AI loose on a brokerage floor and let it just start answering the phone without any security around it, it's going to tell a bad actor whatever's on the screen.
That's what as if I teed that right up for you. The reason I asked it is because I keep hearing about all of the advances in AI for carrier sales and booking, right? And I don't know if I was talking to Shannon or another guest last week, but I brought it up in the same way, which is, isn't that going to cause more ability for the humans to not stop the fraud? It's just going to be supercharged. And then what are we going to put in place for that? Which is, if it's, because then at the end of the day, Highway could be well positioned for that if a broker is using one of those agentic AIs, because at least your system is a system of record. They're checking to see if they should use the carrier. But if they're not, then it's like you took out the human aspect of saying, something doesn't look right on this. And yes, agentic AI at a lot of things can do things at a higher level than a human, but context of the industry is not really one of them.
That's right, Gabe. And the other problem is, like, my own ChatGPT, we have an enterprise account. I had to talk to this thing for a year before it understood freight. It would just it would say things like, this makes no sense. Like, why did you say that? You know what I mean? But here's what, like, here's the unknowns, right? Like, you sign up ABC agentic voice AI guy. I mean, I haven't read the data agreements, but like, what are their models learning? What are they doing with everything that they learn? How is that data being secured? Like, what can be? Man, I think because I live in bad news all day, when people try to do bad things, I automatically go to like, I'd be real careful. Like, this is a founder that's never been in freight. They don't know anything about it. You know, if you look at their pricing structure, there's nothing in there about security. So I can tell you what we've done. We have built a couple of our own. So we use LLMs from Amazon. Like, we use stuff that's bomb proofed, right? Like, like the framework that we use for the suggestion model is the one that runs under your Netflix account. Like, so first of all, it's like, go get stuff that works. Like, just go, like, don't try to go reinvent the wheel, right? Like, go get stuff that works. The second thing is, I have a great partner leader, and we've cut off. Like, I get a voice AI, and I'm like, no, you're not going to partner with us. So we've just limited the amount of voice AI partners that will even allow to integrate with Highway, and we're going to start holding them to like some security standards. Like, what are you doing? Like, because it's interesting. It's a danger. It's a brand issue for us.
Well, and this is something I'm going to say is speculative. I don't know this for sure, but my assumption and my educated opinion is that it's actually a level upstream of the voice AI providers. It's what is OpenAI doing with your data and what it's like, because unless they're using an open source model and then forking it and then putting it in their own Git and like doing it that way, which none of them are, as far as I know, because they're not as powerful. They're not frontier models. Then it's not even their data. That's probably why they don't even have the ability to be like, yeah, we won't do anything with your data. They can't control that. And maybe they can, and they're going to DM me and say, hey, you're totally misinformed.
Yeah.
But
the other thing I would ask too is, like, you're a big customer experience guy. Like, I've read super stuff. Like, eventually the motor carrier is just going to quit answering the phone. Yeah. They don't want 1,500 brokers, robots calling them.
Well, or they will get a robot to talk to the robot, and then there you go.
And then Terminator. All right, and we're just living in some dystopian movie. Look, we have our own. We have Holly from Highway, and Holly from Highway calls carriers, and it's our own. We made it to verify like pickup information, but we use her for really benign tasks. We're not trying to like replace really important workflows. Like, we use it for exception management, and we're testing that and seeing what the response is like.
I actually think, to go further on that, this is maybe we'll be at odds on this, but I think you'll see it. I've been starting to, like, at Rocket, as we roll out AI of our own, and mostly it's internal, and we have some of it customer facing now. Now, granted, we don't do carrier sales, so that is like a whole thing. I look at it as 2 years ago, it was like, hey, let's use it for the stuff that, like, track and trace or updating systems of record and things like that no one really wants to do. Yeah. And now we started using it in a way where it's like, hey, we're augmenting the work that we're doing. So when a customer emails in and says, hey, why did this claim get paid for this amount? AI is so good at reading every email about everything from accounting through sales through the ops team about what happened with this shipment and why it was damaged and what did the carrier pay and what did we mitigate. It's supercharging that. And then I've even taken it a step further and said, there's some things that the AI customer facing or load building or quoting will do more accurately and better than our team. Yep. And we'll use it for that. But then, like, what I keep communicating with my team is like, hey, then the humans that are still here are going to do the thing that AI can't do, which is human relationships and that's using critical thinking and being able to problem solve at a level. Now, maybe they'll use the AI to solve the problem, but I think carrier sales is the one thing that shouldn't. Why did they start there?
So you want the honest answer? Because brokers have a labor problem, and they always have. So when you look at any brokerage P&L, the front of house labor cost is going to run anywhere from 35 to 50% of the broker's gross margin. Yeah. Right. So you take the rule back in the day was you could do $1 million a head, and you can control your costs, and you can run 5% EBITDA in a freight brokerage. Right. That was like simple math. Yeah. Okay. And so, but back then, like, you could make 18, 19, 20% margins, and you could find niches. And so, but brokerage margins keep compressing. Like, now they're I used to hire carrier reps for $36,000. They now cost $55,000.
And so your margins are 11% instead of 19.
Yeah. So you have margin compression. You have tech spend that's gone up. Insurance costs more, right? Brokers have taken on a ton of risk transfer. You sign shipper contracts. You know what they put in those.
Yeah.
Like the broker is now the last line of defense for all risk. And so,
and you can't redline anything today.
Yeah, can't redline anything. And so the way that we started dealing with labor problems, we just sent them all to Colombia.
Amen. That's what everybody, and the Philippines.
Colombia and the Philippines. Look, Guadalajara. Some people went to India. And so we just said, well, we're going to offshore all our labor. And then that got expensive. And so all that they're doing. And so these voice AI guys are like, hey, you pay Lean and Rapido this much money, we'll just do it for this. And so their whole go-to-market is we'll just disintermediate your offshore. That's their whole go-to-market.
Yep. And they took that and they also use the psychology of like, although this probably isn't the right thing to do, founders, people, leaders are less connected to the offshore staff through Lean or through Rapido than they are to their in-house team. And they're much more likely to be like, yeah, I can replace that group with AI, but I wouldn't replace my team with AI, of course.
Yeah.
That's where it's going. Look at C.H. Robinson.
And what they fail to realize is that like one of the things that Lean and Rapido do really well is like they're training people and they're dealing with edge cases. Like there's added services that you can't.
They're not apples to apples. Yeah.
No,
it's not like, hey, AI versus
AI
offshore.
Guys. So you should talk to the CEO of Augment. I really like Harish. She came from Deliver.
I met with Augment, but they're not quite ready for LTL, but I wanted it. So,
but they think more like what you're describing is like, how do we get into the workflow and augment the human? Like we do that at Highway. Like we have OpenAI connected internally, like where it's not shared. And it's faster for my team to just ask ChatGPT than to like ask somebody else.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We have an Ask Rocket Shipping. It's amazing. We use Claude and we have an Ask Rocket Shipping, and anything that I've ever said in a recorded call about, we're doing this CSP for this customer, they no longer have to Slack me and be like, hey, what did you say we're going to do with this? Yeah. They just ask and they know.
Gabe,
it's an amazing training and onboarding.
What did I say? Tool. What did I do? Right?
I had that. I had that happen today.
Like Gong sits on top of our sales calls and is the best sales manager I have is Gong. We use a system. I'll tell you our whole test. We use a system called Intercom for like tickets, and they have a bot called Finn, and Finn like tells us our response time. So I'm with you. Like, if you shouldn't replace it, but man, I can supercharge a really good human being.
Oh yeah,
I can 10x their output and them not feel fatigued. That's the best part, is they actually feel less cognitive load and fatigue, and I think that's probably the smartest way to use AI in its early innings.
Yeah. Maybe in 3 years there will be other ways. That's the other thing. AI is going to move faster than people expect. And in 3 years or 2 years, maybe this conversation is irrelevant. But today, I've always been skeptical, and I'm like an AI first guy. Like maybe I'll back up. Earlier, you said something about putting AI into a system that really, like if you let it loose in carrier sales in a system of record, that it would just wreak havoc. So I think that actually my take is that in order to use AI to do logistics work, new software has to be written at a TMS level and a operating system level. And if you write new software that maybe it has a CLI capability or even MCP, but CLI is already starting to replace that. So we'll see if MCP is relevant. If you do that, then you can actually put logic and safeguards and rails around the different agents, agentic AI. But if you put it into existing systems, it's just not going to be, one, you're not going to get as much juice from the squeeze. And two, you just can't know if it's going to work well. So not many people are going to be like, let it loose. So they're going to use it like a training wheels.
I mean, one of the reasons that AI works so well outside of freight is it's running on top of and in conjunction with modern web applications.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of modern web applications.
Like Google Chrome browsing or Gmail or
And the reality is, bro,
Copilot.
There's not a lot of modern web apps in freight.
Well, even if they were modern, they weren't built to be able to, like, there's not a TMS provider out there today that's like, yep, we have MCP level integration. So, but there is Intercom. That's an SDK plugin or MCP, and Finn is really cool. And Front has a SDK plugin for
we're Front
AI.
customer too.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, so those pieces of software work really well with AI. And then if I draw the comparison to, a lot of our customers are still ask us to do EDI integrations for some of their private fleet stuff or whatever it is. I'm like, okay. And those go really slow and they go, why isn't it happening? I'm like, yeah, EDI. it's a tough one to do. But API isn't even the standard yet. So
But think about let's go back to standards. Why does EDI work? Because it runs on a standard.
It does.
214,
there's 204s, there's
210,
210, yeah.
990, 204s, like the damn thing runs on a standard.
And it's a file, and it's like, it just needs to change this part of the file, and we're good.
And Steve at the van has had the same job for 20 years, and he configures and it works, and you can trust it because it runs on a standard.
Well, I will say, though, this is now talking specifically highway. You guys have a strategic advantage in that your software was written in the last 4 years, and you have a technical founder. So when it does make sense for you to do more with AI to combat fraud in a way that is useful and productive for the broker, you're going to be the first one to be able to do it, or first few to be able to do it. So that's pretty interesting.
The other thing too is we can tell a broker, like, we know the TMSs as well as anybody because we deal with those integrations. So we know our data model, we know their data models, and so we almost have this like kind of unofficial, brokers come to us and they're like, hey, tell us about this with yours and that, and we're like, don't do that. Don't.
That is pretty interesting. You have an interesting like the catbird's view almost. Like, hey, I kind of can see all of this, and I'm not being paid to say this, but
I can just tell you what I wouldn't do.
Yeah.
Exactly. I can tell you what, we have to be very careful. And what I typically say is, let me tell you what questions to go ask. These are the questions you should probably ask with what you're thinking about doing. But look, I think for the most part, we've pulled on a lot of threads. I think for the most part, the founders that have gotten into this early on the AI space, they're very ambitious, and I think they mean well. I'm one of those, I'm probably like this old curmudgeon, like that sounds like I'm telling the kids to get off my lawn, but like there are nuances that if you don't account for, they can be very, very expensive.
Expensive in more ways than financial. So
reputational. And like I've always been a guy, Gabe, that if your business fundamentals aren't sound, like can we just talk about that first? Like, do you know how to read a financial statement, Mr. Freight Broker? Like, are you familiar? Like, what moves your P&L the most? Like, what's happening on your carrier sales floor? I can't tell you how many. When I consulted, I kind of specialized in the sub $200 million space, and I would walk in and I would say, give me two numbers. I need your load to carrier ratio, and I need like what's your average throughput per rep is. And I never had one client that, like, what do you mean load to carrier? I mean, you move X amount of loads a month. How many carriers do you use? What's your reload rate? Like, how often do you do it? Like, just tell me, just kind of give me an overview of your network. And I didn't have one client. These are people that built $200 million businesses that couldn't give me a number.
They didn't know the number. Yeah.
Well,
they probably knew their EBITDA and their net.
That's where all the juice is like in optimizing your network. Like, how are you holding people accountable? How are you paying them? Like, what are you doing? It's like, if you can't answer that question, like, please let's not.
AI is going to answer it, Michael. I mean, just drop it in there. And if people watch more than one episode of this, they'll hear me say that AI is the greatest thing to happen to freight. And then they'll also hear this episode. And when I think the nuance is that when you talk about like the use cases for it, it is some of the coolest stuff that you can do sales wise, like with Gong and all of that, and what you can do with Front and Intercom. I just think I guess we'll full circle this, go back to incentives. We talked about like VC funding model and shares and all that with incentives. It's the same thing. Whatever they're attacking first is where the brokers have the margin to gain. But that wasn't necessarily the best problem to solve with AI. Right. I don't think.
I don't.
And there's other companies that are doing.
I think you look at the ones that have a little less like big pop. They're trying to play the long game and actually, there's some founders out there that have made mistakes, and I like those guys. Yeah, because they kind of know they're not as high on their own supply. And I'm really, I'm very impressed with, kind of their sober approach to the problem.
And if they're playing the long game in AI, they're probably doing the right thing, but it is so tempting, and doesn't necessarily mean it's a morally bad choice, but it is tempting to do the pump and dump because everybody is afraid someone else is going to do it faster. And that is the VC game anyways. It's like, hey, you got to be first to market, second to market, third doesn't matter. Yeah. So I get that. It's just all incentives. But all right, let me wrap it up with this, Michael. I'm a $200 million broker, not Rocket, talking just some random $200 million broker out there. And I'm looking for to work with highway. What problems are you going to solve for me? I use DAT today and trucker tools, and I use truck stop, and I just post loads. I have contract freight. I don't know what percentage, but I move $200 million.
Yeah.
Why would I use highway?
Yeah. First of all, it's just leakage. You need to stop risk. You need to close the front door. I mean, We tell brokers we do 3 things for them. We reduce their surface area of risk. We make them the hardest target, and we help them divide the world between good guys and bad guys. And so the first thing we're going to do is just give you an honest look at your network. So typically when a broker comes to us, it's $200 million. The very first thing we do before we even sell them anything is we run an impact report. And we just take all of their carriers and we say, hey, here's what your network looks like. Here's where we see the risk today. That's the first thing. The second thing that's going to happen is you're going to get load level visibility. You can keep your track and trace provider if you want, but we track all their freight and it's included. And
oh, really?
We do it in a license, we just do it in tiers, and like you pay 1 cent fee, like your cell phone. We don't charge $1 for a dot or any of that. So we'll track all your freight, but we do it in a compliance first way. And so if a load is not trackable, that's a risk signal. We're not trying to figure out how to get you a dot so that we can charge you $1. We're actually telling you that this is
saying,
not
hey,
that's a problem. And then we'll give you capacity. I mean, we'll give you a way to stay out of. The thing that we say about load boards is they have their place. They really do. But they have their place the way Craigslist has their place. They have their place the way Facebook Marketplace has its place. And anytime you post in public, you are choosing to leak intelligence.
I've never heard it said exactly that way. I'm going to let that sink.
You're choosing
posting in public, not just load boards, but posting in public, you're advertising, I have this load if you'd like to try to game the system and steal it.
Because, Gabe, they know. They've been watching us for years. They know what cities do what. They know which brokers have what. They will pick up and deliver loads for a broker to steal them from a different broker that has the same freight, to learn the network, to learn the docs. I could tell you so many horror stories. We've already been at this an hour, but I could tell you so many stories where we're just like, how did they know? How did they know? And so they're in your network. And so anytime you post publicly, you are choosing to leak intelligence. I'll give you a scary stat.
I love this.
We're going to release a performance guarantee. 80% of carriers in a freight broker's network meet the standards of the performance guarantee. Freight brokers overall, put 50% of their freight on the worst 20% of carriers.
Oh, I was going to say, is this the 80-20 rule?
No, it is, dude. It is. It's not like Pareto was not wrong. And the reality is because the thing that freight brokers are going to have to deal with, the next thing, is are they willing to adopt and enforce standards, and are they willing to do work? Because they still want to post their freight. They still want to post their freight, and they want a different result.
Yeah.
And some brokers are working to change their culture, but the reality is there are some cultural issues about what it means to do procurement that have to be dealt with. That no solution. You got to be willing to do the work. You got to be willing to hold your people accountable to actually utilize a different source. I can give you the capacity, but it's not. They're not gonna. The fish are not going to jump in the boat, Gabe.
Right.
And the fish that do jump in the boat, they're going to steal your loads.
The first fish to jump in typically are a little too eager.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So how do people connect with you, Michael? LinkedIn or email or
LinkedIn's
website?
the easiest. Michael@highway.com. I was early, so I still have the first name email. It's great. Michael@highway.com.
Oh, look at you.
If you're going to TIA, I'll be there next week.
Capital Ideas Conference.
Do you go to that?
I've been a couple of times. Okay. I'm not going to be there this year, but
okay.
I try to limit my travel for conferences because I travel to so many customers now, and I got the 3 toddlers, so I pick and choose conferences.
I didn't ask you. I'm sorry. Where do you live? Where do you sit?
Fargo, North Dakota, the freight capital of the world, the freight tech capital of the world, because Rocket is here. But no, Fargo, North Dakota. Grew up in Minnesota, and then came over to North Dakota. It's an hour from where I grew up, but it's North Dakota.
You're not scared of the cold like I am. I think I've been through North Dakota.
If you've driven through it, I feel bad for you. It's not much to drive through.
There's some insurance agencies in North Dakota that I had to go see.
Oh yeah, there are. Do I find you on LinkedIn?
Yep. Yeah,
email?
LinkedIn's easy. I'm easy to find. Email is michael@highway.com. Super easy.
So I think you just advertised. You just leaked intelligence. Your email is now out there, Michael. So hit up his inbox.
7 people named Jordan Graft are going to try to email me and ask me for a gift card after this. It's going to be great.
iTunes gift cards. And they're going to wait until Jordan and you hire a new employee, and they're going to hit them on that day. They are pretty good at that.
So amazing. We have
new employee who's
incident
nervous.
reporting channel. It's hilarious. It's comical.
Oh man. Well, I appreciate your time, Michael. We're going to get back after running the businesses and growing Highway and growing Rocket. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Gabe.
See ya.